Okay, so here we are. I've made my second row. I'm almost all the way across. I just wanted to show you guys here where I put my stitch marker. So I did a stitch here. There's one more, and then there's where I put my stitch marker where that first stitch was. So working the second to last stitch, working that last stitch in the back loop. Sometimes you can just take your stitch marker out if you put it in the way. But at least you'll know when you take that out, I have to do one more stitch to keep this even. Take your stitch marker out. We'll put another one. I'll move it to the first one on this next part. I love this yarn. It's single ply, but it gets stuck on my fingers sometimes. So one thing that I didn't do in the video is once you make your initial chains and you measure them on the ruler, you want to count how many stitches you actually have and write that down. On this pattern, I made a note that there's 36 for this hat. But depending on your gauge and your yarn and hook combination, you might have a different number, and that's okay. But we're going to make straight rows. We don't want them to increase or decrease. So you just want to make sure you write that number down so you know. So I would count all of these stitches across on the top. I'd write that down, and then if something looks off, I would say if it's 1 or 2 stitches off, you don't have to tear the whole thing out. Just add or subtract the stitches, increase or decrease, just to get back to your number. And that will help keep your hat nice and even. So let's look at, before we actually turn this, again, we're looking at the half double crochets. So this is the front loop, there's the back loop, and then that third loop we had looked at before is right under here. So there's that third loop kind of behind. But we are going to make 2 chains and turn. And so my first one is this tiny guy because it is the skinny yarn, okay? So it's kind of right next to where your chains are. That's where you're going to be working. And so when we looked at it this way, there's front loop, back loop, third loop, right? So now it's back, front, third loop. I know that feels kind of confusing. Just depends which way you're looking at it, right? We're looking and we've flipped it. So now the back and front loop have switched sides. So there's the loop the furthest back. Here's this original front loop. We're going to be working into here. So what I like to do, instead of holding it like this, and this is how you'd work in your stitches, right? I actually turn it. So I'm looking at these 2 loops as if they're my front and back loop. So you're going to put your hook into here, just normally like you'd normally put it into a stitch. You're not going to work under it. You're going normal, just through. And I forgot to yarn over, so sorry. So focused on that third loop. At my test group, we talked at length about what to call that. What to call that loop, the additional loop. But I think when you look at it, the stitch from the right side, it is the third loop when you look at it from the front loop, the back loop, and then the next loop is the third loop. But then when you turn it to work into your row, right, into your next stitch, the third loop is the very front loop. So don't let that throw you off too bad. I'm going to get some worked in here on the video so you guys can kind of see what's happening. So the back is just kind of straight and plain. Again, sorry about this focus on my video. It's really irritating. But we'll flip it over so you guys can see this side. So now we've got these sort of faux knit lines going down here. It's going to be a little space. There's going to be, this will become another line, and we'll have another one right on top of it. So that's kind of the look we're going for as we work through this pattern. So this, what we're doing right here is row 3, and that's the long section of notes that's in the notes. But I'm hoping some pictures and videos will help clarify that so it looks a little easier. And of course, I forgot to put my stitch marker in. But you would put that here on that first one that you made.